The top and bottom line, we're seeing 89 cents adjusted for earnings per share. That is 5 cents higher than what the street anticipated, up 82% from a year ago. So it is decelerating, but still higher. On revenues of $39.3 billion. That is higher than the street anticipated. And I'm also seeing data center revenue coming in at $35.6 billion. The street was anticipating 33. So also a slight beat. We'll get back to you with the guidance.
All right. Christina Partsinevelos, thank you. Still combing through that result. Stephanie Link, want to get your reaction to this with a beat on the top and bottom lines. And it looks like data center revenue a beat as well, and the stock spiking about 3.5% right now.
Well, revenue beat. That was good. I think there was expectation that revenue was going to beat. So obviously very positive. But data center, I think, is all driven by the data center. When you have the street that was looking for 34.1 billion, that would be up 11% sequentially. And then the number was better than expected at 35.6. So that's up 12% sequentially. That should be good enough. But I think at the end of the day, we just have to hear the conference call. I think this is the most anticipated conference call of the season, of the earnings season, because we want to hear more details about DeepSeek. We want to hear more about Blackwell and the capacity supply issues and that sort of thing. And then, of course, we want to hear what they have to say about the data center build out in general, from Microsoft to Meta to all the big names, where all the CapEx is going. So I think we have to wait for the call, unfortunately. But the numbers look good to me.
Yeah, and even beyond the call, of course, Jensen Huang is going to be with us on CNBC after he talks to analysts for even more detail. Pat Moorhead, no big surprises here. It looks like beats pretty much across the board, but we have to dig more into the margins. And of course, you want to hear about Blackwell, right?
That's absolutely right. I did expect a double beat, and maybe that wasn't too hard to figure out, but I know there are a lot of bears out there that question about everything that I want to know is in the CFO commentary and on the call, right? We need to understand details about the Blackwell rollout, supply chain clarity. I would love for Jensen to come out and be very direct on DeepSeek. I've been on your show before saying DeepSeek.
Commentary from Jensen Huang in the release as well. And I know we're going to go back to Christina Partsinevelos right now for more from these results. Christina.
Well, just to your point, that bullish commentary, he said, quote, we've successfully ramped up the massive scale production of Blackwell. So did
it's going to close John. We can touch out more details on more than ahead as far as is concerned. But I think the reaction here is the stock's up a little bit. What we've seen with Nvidia since last summer is multiple rallies ending on a positive day and then an intraday reversal, indicating investors selling into strength. So I think the real key that I'll be watching is tomorrow. How does that stock react? Do we see strength, or if we do see strength in the morning, does it immediately get sold off? And if it does, that'll just tell us that the stock continues to be in a distribution mode rather than under accumulation.
The revenue results are very good. As we know, their biggest customers spent a lot on CapEx in the fourth quarter and are going to continue to spend. So we had the upside on revenue and in terms of guidance for the April quarter. But the gross margins were lower, and it's what Caroline was pointing to. When you have a product transition every year and you're ramping up production of a new product, it comes in at lower gross margins. Yeah. And that's still happening to them. So they guided to gross margins below expectations for next quarter, indicating they are still getting lower margins on that Blackwell product line. So we had the least anticipated result for this earning, which is the stock could be flat tomorrow, not up 10%, not down 10%.
Yeah, and the stock has been oscillating between gains and losses. And Gil, I just want to bring to you another headline here. The company breaking out sales for those Blackwell chips, saying it accounted for about $11 billion of its revenue in the most recent quarter. Of course, again, we're talking about $40 billion in revenue total, so a bit more here than a quarter of total revenue. Nvidia also saying, Gil, that this is the fastest product ramp up in the company's history. Talk to me about that $11 billion revenue number for the Blackwell architecture. Are you happy enough with that?
Well, that's a little better than they guided to last quarter, but it does indicate then the sales of the rest of their products declined quarter over quarter. None of that matters. Their customers are going to buy whatever NVIDIA is selling. Their customers right now have more demand than NVIDIA can supply, and it's going to take at least a couple of more quarters for that to catch up. That's why we still are going to have a $4 billion incremental growth into the April quarter from this quarter because they still haven't caught up to demand. It does look like Microsoft and Amazon on their earnings call talked about catching up in terms of the supply of chips that they're ordering by the middle of the year. So it's more the back half of the year that we're going to have to see if demand materializes. And it's very important that you made the connection to Salesforce. If companies like Salesforce don't see an acceleration of revenue based on AI, then it's going to be very hard to justify continuing the rate of investment in CapEx that we've seen the last couple of years.
To have you with us. What's your take on the quarter and what's your take on that $11 billion Blackwell revenue number?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. 11 billion for Blackwell. We were thinking it was going to be 5 or 6. So this is a very healthy, good number. We were worried about the April quarter as it's kind of this hole in revenue between Hopper and GB200. So we think this is a fine result.
What are you looking for on the conference call, Chris? What's going to be your
China business? You talked on the call about how the percentage of revenue is half what it was before export controls. Does the emergence of DeepSeek, which some have cast as a workaround, some of those restrictions, does it tell us anything about the effectiveness of export controls?
It's hard to tell whether export control is effective. The thing that I can tell you is this. Our percentage revenues in China before export controls is twice as high as it is now. There's a fair amount of competition in China. Export control and otherwise, Huawei, other companies are quite rigorous and very, very competitive. And so I think that ultimately software finds a way. Maybe that's the easiest way of thinking about it. You know, software is always, whether you're developing software for a supercomputer or software for a personal computer or software for a phone or software for a game console, you ultimately make that software work on whatever system that you're targeting, and you create great software. And so that's kind of the beauty of software engineers. They're incredibly innovative and clever in this way. Our architecture is about the flexibility of software, and which is kind of nice. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, here in the United States, if you look at where we are now compared to what is controlled, GB200 is probably something along the lines of 60 times the token generation rate of what is being shipped in China that's currently export controlled. Okay. And so the separation of performance is quite high. Ultimately, what we know we experience is a great deal of competition there.
I think last quarter you said demand for Blackwell was insane. This quarter you said it's extraordinary. Those about the same? Is one better than the other?
I would say that my feelings about Blackwell is better today than it was last quarter. And the reason for that is because we, of course, ramped up into production. We exceeded our target. And the teams did an amazing job. As you recall, we had a hiccup in our design flaw in Blackwell that we found early on last quarter or quarter before that. And we recovered tremendously well, and I'm very proud of the team for that. And so for those reasons, I feel pretty great from an execution perspective. From a demand perspective, DeepSeek was fantastic. It was fantastic because it open sourced the reasoning model that's absolutely world-class. Just about every AI developer in the world today has either incorporated R1 using, it's called distillation, distilled from R1, or using techniques that have been open sourced out of R1 so that their models could be a lot more capable. Across the world, AI has become better as a result of the last several months. And so I'm excited about that. And the demand for computation, for inference time, for test time scaling, which is one of the reasons why Grace Blackwell NVLink 72 is so exciting. That feature is now more prominent than ever, more demanded than ever. And I think the demand side of it is more exciting too.